I grew up in Portland, Maine, always looking up to my older brother, Tommy. He was fearless, the kind of person everyone admired. When he joined the military and went to Vietnam, we all believed he would come home. But in 1964, he was shot while flying a helicopter. Even wounded, he landed the aircraft before passing out. He died during surgery. I was 13. Losing him shattered my family and left a hole that never truly healed.
Years later, when the draft began, my parents feared losing another son. Through church connections, I was offered a way out, seminary school. At first, it was just an escape, but studying faith gave me peace. I stayed, believing service mattered more than safety. That belief eventually led me deep into Appalachia, to a place where faith would be tested in ways I never imagined.
In 1977, I arrived in a small Appalachian town I'll call Ashburn. It sat hidden in the hollers, quiet valleys surrounded by thick woods. Coal mining ruled life there. Families worked hard, children roamed free, and everyone knew everyone. I set up a simple Sunday school under a tent, expecting slow growth. Instead, it filled immediately. The children listened closely, especially one quiet boy named Joshua. Joshua was pale, timid, and often avoided eye contact. When he missed 2 Sundays, I worried. His mother said he'd been sick. When he returned, he looked worse. While the other kids drew pictures, I asked him how he felt. He said he slept for a long time when he got sick. Then he told me about a dream, trees covered in underwear, and strange dolls coming out to play with him. I laughed nervously, thinking it was imagination. But before leaving, Joshua said something that chilled me. He said the next time he got sick and fell down, he hoped he wouldn't have to sleep in the woods again. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The words didn't sound like fantasy. They sounded like memory. The next day, I contacted the sheriff's office. A deputy named Isaac listened carefully. He explained that in Appalachia, kids often wandered. Still, he agreed to check. Days later, he told me Joshua had collapsed in the woods, but was found and brought home. I wanted to believe that was the end of it. For weeks, things stayed quiet. Then a fire broke out in Godby Holler, an abandoned plague town everyone avoided. Soon after, 3 men disappeared. Vigils were held. Hope faded. Then someone destroyed a church memorial and left behind a sackcloth mask with a stitched smile. Fear spread through the town like a sickness. The night before I left town, Deputy Isaac asked to meet me near Godby Holler. He was drunk and shaking. He told me about another case, a teenage girl drugged, taken to a haunted place, seeing trees covered in underwear. The same image Joshua described. Isaac went into the holler himself. Deep in the woods, Isaac found trees filled with hanging underwear, trophies. He burned them. Then he found the mask in his own brother's trailer. What followed was justice taken by hand. Isaac killed his brother and the other men responsible, hiding their bodies in an abandoned mine. Isaac asked me if God could forgive a man who killed his own brother to protect innocent children. I had no answer then. I still don't. Some evils hide so well that when they're finally exposed, the truth destroys everyone who touches it. I was raised in the suburbs of Cincinnati, far from mountains and hollers. My childhood was quiet and safe. But my grandfather, Joe, came from a very different place. He was born in a small Appalachian town called Jefferson, North Carolina. He served as a deputy sheriff there for over a decade, and he always said the mountains showed him both the best and the worst sides of people. Grandpa Joe said Appalachia had a weight to it. Not something you could see, but something you could feel, like the land remembered everything that happened on it. He told me many stories from his time as a deputy, but there was one that stayed with him more than all the others. It was the story of a man everyone trusted and how his death shocked the entire town. The man's name was Mr. Levi. He was a kind, elderly widower who lived just outside town. He owned the local barber shop for years and spent his retirement caring for his sick wife. After she passed, he lived a quiet life. Every morning, he ate breakfast at the same cafe. Every afternoon, he visited the barber shop. He never missed a day. One morning, Mr. Levi didn't show up. The cafe owner tried calling him, but there was no answer. Worried, she contacted the sheriff's office. Grandpa Joe was sent to check on him. When he arrived, the front door was locked, but the back door was wide open. That was the first sign something was wrong. Inside the house, a children's cartoon played on the television. For a brief moment, it felt normal, safe. Then Grandpa walked into the living room. Mr. Levi was slumped in his chair, surrounded by blood. His injuries were severe and violent beyond reason. Grandpa said it was the worst crime scene he ever witnessed. The entire town was shaken. No one could understand who would want to hurt Mr. Levi. He had no enemies. Nothing was stolen. There were no signs of a struggle outside the house. Whoever did it came quietly and left just as quietly. The investigation went nowhere. Desperate for answers, the sheriff asked Grandpa to research Mr. Levi's family history. That's when something strange surfaced. Mr. Levi was related to a former governor connected to the Hatfield and McCoy feud, a violent conflict that had torn Appalachia apart generations earlier. A feud so brutal, it became legend. At first, the idea seemed ridiculous, a murder tied to a feud nearly 100 years old. But when deputies traced bloodlines in the town, they found something disturbing. Several residents were descendants of one of the feud's most violent men. Suddenly, the past didn't feel so distant anymore. The sheriff quietly checked alibis. Out of all the possible descendants, only one could fully account for their whereabouts that night. But there was no proof. Anyone could access those records. No cameras, no logs, no witnesses. The case stalled, and slowly, the town stopped talking about it. Mr. Levi's murder was never solved. Grandpa Joe eventually left Jefferson, convinced that some hatred never dies, it only sleeps. In the Appalachian Mountains, old violence doesn't disappear. It waits for the right moment to rise again. More than 30 years ago, in 1995, I drove down to North Carolina for a camping weekend with some old friends. We stayed at a place called Standing Deer Campground, tucked into the foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains. It was peaceful, full of laughter, and for a while, it felt like the outside world didn't exist. By Monday morning, it was time to leave. Packing up felt heavier than I expected. I hugged my friends, loaded my car, and started the drive back toward Indianapolis. A few miles down the road, I realized I didn't have enough gas to make it home. I asked someone at the campground where the nearest gas station was. They told me to take the southern road and said there was one near another campground called River Valley. I followed their directions, driving deeper into a quiet stretch of road lined with trees. Eventually, I saw the gas station sitting alone on top of a small hill. No other cars, no noise, just the hum of the pumps and the woods stretching out behind it. I pulled in, paid for gas inside, and began filling my tank. That's when I felt it, that deep, uncomfortable feeling of being watched. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but then I saw movement near the trees. A man stood there, half hidden behind a trunk, staring straight at me. He stepped out of the woods and began walking toward me. He was thin, covered in sores, wearing a filthy tank top. His eyes were sunken and bloodshot. His teeth were broken and dark. Every movement he made was twitchy and wrong. My body went cold with fear. Then he pulled a handgun from behind his back. I raised my hands and begged him not to shoot. I yelled loudly, hoping the store clerk would hear me. The
The man glanced toward the building just as the clerk realized something was wrong and ran into the back.
The man demanded my wallet, his voice rough and unstable. I threw my keys toward him and told him to take my car. When he bent down to pick them up, he suddenly jumped back and aimed the gun at me again. His hands shook. I didn't move. I was sure I was about to die.
I saw his finger tighten on the trigger. There was a loud bang, but the gun didn't fire. It exploded in his hand. Metal flew apart. His hand was torn open, blood spraying everywhere. For a second, everything went silent. Then he started screaming.
The clerk came out holding a long gun and ordered the man to stay down. He told me to leave immediately and never come back. I got in my car and drove away, shaking. Later, I realized how close I came to dying in a place where no one would have heard me scream. Sometimes, survival is nothing more than pure luck.
If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe my channel. See you on next videos. Till then, goodbye.